Everyone, welcome back to my video. In this video, I will talk about Lake database and Delta Lake. Now, this is for someone who is curious about Lake database, who wants to see how you can create Lake database, how you can create Lake database table, probably using custom data or using some sort of templates which are readily available. Now, in this series, I am trying to cover topics which are related to someone who wants to start their career as a Azure data engineer. So, I'll be talking about topics which are related to Azure data engineer, how you create those resources, how you deal with those resources, how you deal with data, etc. Now, before starting, let me introduce myself. I'm Sushil. I'm a certified cloud and DevOps expert. I have more than a decade of industry experience. I'm passionate about fitness and technology, and I share my knowledge using my blog, thetechguy.in. Now, before starting everything, I want to talk about little bit about Delta Lake because when we talk about Lake database, the whole idea is based on Delta Lake. Now, what is Delta Lake? Delta Lake is really an open source storage framework, which is right now in a capacity managed by Linux Foundation. But what Delta Lake does is it enables building a lake house architecture with different compute engines based on the cloud provider. And in Azure, this is known as something called Lake Database. Lake Database gives you an option to utilize Delta Lake. Now, what does Delta Lake or what does Lake Database really do? It really combines the benefit of Data Lake. Data Lake, if you are not really familiar with Data Lake is essentially a storage service in Azure. It is basically a storage account where you have hierarchical namespaces enabled. It gives you large data analytics and large data storage option. So it's basically a Azure storage account. So Lake Database combines the data lake and data warehouse function. So you store your data in data lakes, and then you create your lake database. You create your tables, and then you can query, you can ingest, you can have data from a streaming platform, or you can have your batch data. You can then analyze, you can train, you can do whatever you want to do. So basically Lake database adds this data warehouse functionality on the data lake. That is the fundamental functioning or the requirement, or that is what the lake database does. Now, Lake Database in Azure Synapse Analytics, it really brings together the possibility to describe how your data should be stored, which I'll be showing in the lab. So you basically define the schema, and then you store your data, and then you query your data. So Lake Database uses the data lake storage account, as I mentioned, and on top of it you define how you store your data using Parquet, using CSV, or different settings to optimize your storage, and then you can query your data. Now this is how your data lake architect, or this is typically how data lake is stored. Data lake is where you are storing your data, and then your data is coming from some sort of source, which might be a streaming platform or some sort of batch jobs. And then different cloud platforms will have your data lake. So in Google you'll have your Google storage. In Azure you'll have your data lake storage. In Amazon you'll have your S3 buckets. In IBM Cloud, Oracle, etc. And then you can see, when you are dealing with data, what you want to do, you want to either query or analyze the data, or you want to train the data and have some sort of machine learning in place. So then you can really do whatever you want to do with the data. So in Lake database you have different, I would say, tiers. Bronze, where you just have your raw ingested data. Silver, you'll have some sort of filtered and cleaned data. In gold, you'll have the business level aggregation. Then you send to streaming or AI and reporting, and then you have your data from different sources: Data Lake, Apache Spark, Kinesis, which is AWS. You can have Kafka, etc., etc., and that is what the Lake database does. You'd be wondering, we have data lake storage, then why do we really need lake database? Why can't we just store? Because it is essentially using data lake in the backend, right? So data lake storage, as the name suggests, it is just a storage option where you have your hierarchical file system on top of the Azure Blob Storage, and you just store your data. You can still query the data. You can query the data, but you cannot really integrate the data with different platforms. So Azure Data Lake Storage you can use if your focus is on cost-effective data storage, and you just want to have some sort of analysis. But you can use lake database if you want real-time analytics and collaboration with the different platforms as I mentioned, and you can just integrate it with Power BI or Databricks, etc. So if you want a sort of analysis and real-time analysis and collaboration, then go for lake database. But if you just want to store data and just query the data once in a while, you can use data lake storage. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, it will be more of a lab. In this lab, I'll create a lake database. Then I'll create a table using, see, when you create a table, you can really create table using different options, which can be either using a custom table where you define your schema. I mean, you'll anyway define the schema, but you define your schema and then you a custom schema you define, and then you load your data or you query your data from data lake, or you can get your you can create a table from an existing template. I'll show there are a lot of templates based on industry, based on type, and based on whatever you want to do, and then we can create a table from existing data that is already on the data lake. Okay, so let me take you to my Synapse. So this is my Synapse workspace. Now in the Synapse workspace, if you have not seen my previous video, I've talked about this. This is the landing page and what all this does. In the data, if you want, you can check the playlist in my channel and then you can see it. In the data, we really deal with our if you had external tables, if you had workspaces, etc., your linked storage account, which is your data lake storage, you can see it linked. Here we can create our SQL database, lake database, etc. So I can create on plus, and I can create on click on create a lake database. Okay. Okay, so this is what it is. Just a second. Now, I don't want to go to this one. Let me open this page. Now, this is my linked database. Now, if I click on create a table, I clicked on create lake database, it takes me to this page. I can click do it using custom, I can do it from template, and I can do it from existing data lake. Now I'll show you all three. I'll try to cover all three in the time that I'm planning for this video. If not, then I'll just break it down in different videos. Now let me click on create a table and let me name it as, or we'll not just do it tables for now. Let me name it this retail db. If you see, the input folder is files and retail db. I do not really have a retail db right now. If you've noticed, I do not really have a retail db folder here. So I'll go to this, I go to files, retail db, and I publish this. Okay, and now if you see, here I have my retail DB lake database created. This is my lake database that is created. I do not, I mean, this is the this one. I'll probably delete, or I'll not really deal with this one. Now I can go to my retail DB. This is my retail DB opened here. If it was not open, I can do this and I can open it in a new tab. Now in this, I can click on create a custom this one, and let me do this. Let me delete this, and this one I will name it as a customer table. Okay, and see, I'm creating a custom, so I do not really have any columns, so I'll create all the columns that I want. Okay, because this is a customer table that I'm creating, so I probably want my data related to customer, so I'll have a customer ID, right? And I want it as a primary key because obviously we want a primary key. And for example, customer ID, String is fine, or let me choose long. We click on new column. I use it as first name, customer first name. Okay, it can be null. And if string is fine, column, new column, last name, customer, last name. I don't want last name as the last name can be null. First name I don't want as null. And I click on new. I use email address, customer email. Thing is fine. I click on create new and I use phone and customer phone. I don't want phone as null. I want phone to be mandatory. String is fine. Fine. I've defined the schema. So what I in the table I want customer ID, name, first name, last name, email address. What happened to this? Email address and phone. Fine. And now I publish this. If you want to see the settings, you can click on this. It will show you settings. Retail DB is my general, and that is my table. And then this is my customer. This is the table that I'm creating. And if you want, I can clone, I can delete whatever I want. And this is what I'm creating. Publish. Okay. Now it is published in the tables. I mean, if see, I don't see it now. If I refresh, I can, because table one I deleted, if you remember. In retail DB tables, I have a customer table. Now, if you go to my customer table and I see relation or no, not relationships, I see this and I see my storage. It is expecting the input folder is file retail DB customer. Now I go to files. I do not really have a retail DB folder here. Okay, I do not really have a retail DB folder. So let me create a folder and let me name it as retail DB. And in retail DB, I've already created few files. In retail DB, I upload and I upload from lab and I go to my customer. There are so many things that we can do. I can go to my link, or this is the customer. I can just preview. Now if you see, I have all these things, right? My customer ID, first name, last name, email ID, and phone number. Okay. Now if I just go to my this thing, my table, and I can go to my workspace and I can write select 100. This is what my customer is doing, first name, last name. I do not really have first column and I run. This is what I'm doing. Now, what happened? Okay, it is selected. This will run. Oh, why do I have all the permissions? This is what storage account, or I don't really want to waste time. Let me pause and let me fix this. Okay, so I fixed it. Let me show you what I was doing. I had basically created a my file in retail DB customer CSV. It's good that it happened because I would be able to show you what you might be doing wrong. Now, this is my retail DB, right? And this is my table. If you don't really know what I did, let me go to workspace. Let me do this. Open. This is my retail DB and this is my table customer. I click on this and the storage setting I see in files. I have a retail DB folder. In retail DB folder, I'm expecting a customer folder. I can edit it also when creating. Now, what I was doing is in this, I had really I'd really created customer.csv in retail DB. So now what I did is I created customer folder in retail DB and I uploaded the customer.csv in the customer folder. Now if I run, if you see, now let me show you what. So if I see this and if I preview, you see my customer.csv does not really have a header, correct? See, there is no header defined, there is no schema defined. My first this now this is what I'm doing, this is what helped me do it. Now in the query I do this, and if you see, this is my header. So the schema, it already identified the schema and it is defining or listing the data based on the schema that I've defined. Now let's do this. Create a table in the retail DB. Let me create a table. We chose the custom option, correct? Now let me choose the option from a template. Now in the template, we are really talking about retail. Retail. Let me take a retail example. Where is the retail? This is retail. In the retail, let me go to, let it load. It takes a couple of seconds. Uh, let me it's fine. So in this, let me expand, because we're talking about customer. I want product related to customer and I want a retail product. Um, and a retail product. I can search also, but it's fine. I have my retail product. Okay, and this is my retail product, and this has all, this is the schema. I do not really want the entire schema, correct? So I can delete really from here, and then I can add, or let me add, and then, and now if I this is the customer, whichever you select, this is showing customer. If I click on retail, it will show me the retail one. Now I do not want all of this because I don't have all the columns available, or I do not really want. This is a template, we can customize this template. So let me customize this. Let me select all of this, and I just want product ID. I probably want product name. I want product ID. I want product name. I want probably when it was introduced. I want introduction date also. Okay. And next I want is, I want actual abandonment date, and I want product, or I want gross weight, because the CSV that I have, in the CSV I just have these values. That is why I want to show you, you can really customize your schema based on the data that you have. And let me add a new column, or let me show you what I'm doing. Okay, so oops, sorry. I reverted. Let me rename, let me remove this again. Product ID, product name, introduction date, actual abandonment date, gross weight, item SKU. Okay, and so what I've done, I've unchecked whichever table I want, and then I delete whatever is selected. So I delete it. Now if you see, I have product ID, product name, introduction date, actual abandonment, product ID schema, gross weight schema, and it's fine. You might more want new columns also. So what I do is I choose list price and product price. Okay, and price will obviously be in decimal. It's fine. And now if you see, it is in files retail DB retail product. Let me copy this because I'll show you why I'm copying, and let me publish this. This is the schema that I'm using now. Published. Fine. Now, done. And now if I go to my files, if you don't know where it was opened, I go to my linked, I go to my files, and this is how I open it. Now in files in retail DB, I do not really have that folder, right? You do not see that folder. I create a new folder. That is why I copied that folder name and retail product. In this, I upload my product file. Okay. And now the schema that we have defined, what is the use? Why did we choose all of that? If you see, this file does not really have a header. It doesn't have a schema defined. It doesn't have a header. It just has the value. Fine. Now, if I go to my retail DB, or let me go to workspace, let me go to retail product, and let me click on this is the query, and I'm selecting first 100, top 100. And if you see, it is now using the schema that I defined. This is the content that you were seeing, right? And this is the schema that we defined: product ID, name, introduction, abandonment date, gross weight, item, list price, everything. So this is why we are doing all of this. Now let me don't save it. Now I've shown you two options. I've shown you how you create custom, how you use template. Now the third one is from data lake. Now when you choose data lake, you're obviously defining the table name and linked service, because it will try to preview, it will try to get the data. So what I first do is I go to my files again, I go to my retail DB, and I create a folder first, and the folder I'll create is um, second, I create a sales order folder. Sales order is my folder name, and in this I'll upload my CSV. Now I'll tell you why I uploaded my CSV. This is my sales order CSV. I uploaded. Now if I go to my retail DB and I click on from data lake, I click on from data lake, and let me choose sales order. Okay. And which is my linked service, and see that this is what I did. Now in the files, in the retail DB, I created sales order. Now I can actually select a file also which I don't want. That's why I, because I'll show you why. Now the new file that I would upload in future, it will get all the files because it has star star. This is why I uploaded the file. It is trying to preview the data because it will create a lake database, or sorry, table based on the data. It detected there is a CSV file. I'll keep everything standard. Now see, there is no schema defined. Now I'll change my schema. Fine. I will change all these things, and let me define sales order ID. Let me keep it as primary key. Order date. I'll not just keep it primary. Line item ID. I'm not really using description, but the best practice is to use description so that we really know what that column is doing. I'm just not doing it in the interest of time. Okay. Now you'll see what I meant. Now it has all the schema, everything. Now I publish this. Okay, published. Now, after it is published, you do not really see it unless you refresh. Now I refresh. I see it here in my tables, and I have seen my, this is the sales folder. This is the sales order. Right? And now I can also create my relationships also. I can create a relationship. I can create a relationship to table. I can create a relationship from table. Now let me click on to table, and I'll define which table I want. Let me choose customer, and the customer ID is my relation because I have my customer ID here also. See now what it will do. And then to the column, which is obviously my customer ID. So I really have a link relationship created between my um, customer ID in this uh, sales, and I was in relationship. Okay. Now I will add one more. I'll add to table, and from the product, I will choose the product ID, and sales order, I will choose the product ID. Now see, and this is why. Now this ability to define relationship between tables, this enhances referential integrity between related data entities. For example, my customer ID and my customer is related to my customer ID in the sales. So this is basically the sales order of the customer. Similarly, my product ID and related retail product is related to my product ID of the sales. Now this really enhances all of this, and then I will publish this again to save all the changes. Now let me show you this. I've created all this customization. Now in develop, let me write a script and let me run a join. Okay. Let me run a join of all of this, and my sales order. Let me see if my customer, retail product, and sales order. Customer. Let me fix this query and I'll be back. Give me a second. Now, if you see in this query, what I'm doing is I'm just running a join on my sales order, customer, and retail product, all the three. And now I can really do a lot of things. Database again, see, this is one more thing. You need to remember which database you're choosing. I want to choose retail DB because I have all these tables in my retail DB database. And now I can do all of this. So I have my sales order, and my customer email ID is this. Now sales order I'm getting from my sales table, product name I'm getting from my product and quantity. And this is how you can really deal with your lake database and lake tables, etc. I can create chart, I can visualize. I do not really want to do a lot of things here, but I can really do all these things. For example, I want to see with the product name and do all of this. I hope this video helped. If there is anything else that you want me to cover, feel free to drop down in the comment section and I will try to cover that. And please subscribe if you think these videos are helpful. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.